So far, I explained the order of adjectives in noun phrases qualitatively in most general terms, just as you may account qualitatively for the fact that an apple falls down off a tree branch, exploring qualitatively Newton's theory of gravity. Yet, you can also test Newton's theory more rigorously if you establish strict procedures of measuring the mass and the distance. Similarly, for a more rigorous model of the order of adjectives in noun phrases, we may try to model formally the process of attesting the category membership when classifying adjectives into typically descriptive ones, typically relationally selective ones, and typically directly selective ones. In other words, for an objective account of the order of the adjectives in noun phrases, we must come up with some objective, quantitatively measurable way of categorizing these concepts. Such measures in linguistics are often expressed as some statistical characteristics of a given item observed in a big collection of linguistic texts, a so-called linguistic corpus. Proposing such a characteristic of a corpus, which approximates some intuitive concept, is called operationalization of that concept. This definition will become clear if we look at some examples. First, I shall define the degree of relational selectivity of an adjective, which could also be called the degree of gradability for short. The degree of gradability equals the ratio of the number of adjectives in superlative and comparative forms found in a given corpus to the number of all the occurrences of all forms of the given adjective in that linguistic corpus. So, for instance, the degree of gradability of the adjective strong would be expressed by the number of all the occurrences of the lexeme stronger plus the number of occurrences of the lexeme strongest in the corpus, and that divided by the sum of the number of the occurrences of the lexeme strong, stronger, and strongest taken together. Another example, defining the degree of direct selectivity of being categorizing, that is. In this video, I shall define it for Polish language because a much more intuitive operationalization of that concept can be suggested for Polish than for English, and the purpose of this presentation is to illustrate the methodology and not to solve a specific issue. For proposals of operationalization of categorizability in English, check Stephanie Wolf, mentioned in the bibliography in the final slide. So, coming back to Polish, Poles tend to place adjectives used directly selectively after the noun, and the remaining ones before the noun. Therefore, we may define the degree of a given adjectives being directly selective or categorizing for Polish language as follows. The degree of categorizability equals the ratio of the number of postpositional uses of a given adjective, that is, noun adjective, to the number of all uses of that adjective, that is, either adjective noun or noun adjective. And so, for instance, for an adjective popularny, which means popular, the degree of categorizability equals the number of noun phrases popularny following the noun to the number of all uses of the adjective popularny in noun phrases. Doesn't matter whether popularny follows a noun or precedes it. Now we may rephrase the qualitative hypothesis introduced earlier in the following way. To increase the efficiency of the language, in languages which tend to place adjectives in noun phrases on one side of the noun, most of the time, the more categorizing an adjective is, the more likely it is to be placed the closest to the noun. The more gradable it is, the more likely it is to be placed the farthest from the noun. Test results and future research. Data analysis in English and Polish show that indeed the adjectives placed first in a noun phrase, the farthest from the noun, and thus interpreted last, tend to have the highest credibility value. These have been found to be commonly representing the categories of opinion or size. On the other hand, most categorizing adjectives have been shown to be placed the closest to the noun, thus interpreted first. These turned out often to represent the semantic categories such as material, wooden, or nationality. The adjectives expressing age and color have been found to be situated in between the two categories just introduced on both scales mentioned. Similar results, though expressed qualitatively, have been reported in relation to Vietnamese, Chinese, Hungarian, and German. Why don't you check the order of adjectives in other languages you speak, or carry out quantitative investigations in the languages just mentioned? Interestingly, similar results, though expressed qualitatively, have been reported in relation to Vietnamese, Chinese, Hungarian, and German. So it seems that the mechanism responsible for the specific ordering of adjectives I talked about represents a rather general phenomenon. Why don't you check the order of adjectives in another language you speak,